if you have a sound intellect, your sound intellect will question all the time. Why am I worshipping a tree? You know, yes, my parents told me, be good, but worship a tree. Be kind, but worship a tree. You will be in constant dilemma in your mind and your heart. How am I worshipping a tree? It doesn't make sense. It is not infinite. It is not independent. It is not absolute. How can I worship something which doesn't deserve my worship? Yes, I need to be good. I need to be kind. I need to be compassionate. So these kind of things, you have to differentiate between God, because there is two things in brief. The right of God over us and right of everything else that we have over us, or over everything that has over us, we have over them. So we interact with society, everything in society, whether humans, animals, the environment, the air, the water, whatever. We cannot pollute the air or the water or the land or the sea. We cannot destroy vegetation and crops and so on and so forth. We cannot create all these pollutions. We cannot harm the animals, other creatures, let alone human beings. We're not talking about human rights, we're talking about environmental rights. We're talking about animal rights. We're talking about vegetative rights or vegetation rights. But there is more important to that, the right of God. Have we given the right of God what is due to God? Have we surrendered and submitted our will with all our love, with all our intent, with all our sincerity and truthfulness to God alone, and says, yes, we will follow what you ask us to follow because you're the one who created us? Or are we become the slaves to our culture, our nation, our fashion, our friend, our boyfriend, our girlfriend, whatever? A lot of people have become slaves to their own desires. They go for taking, the best watch, the best clothes, the best shoe, best this, best that, the most expensive, the most, the branded. We have become fashioned to this. But all of this tells you there is something within your heart that tells you that there is something called reverence and gratitude and gratefulness and praise and glory that needs to be shifted to somewhere. We are only shifting into our items and celebrities and our friends and our leaders. God is saying, no. Direct all of this, the ultimate praise and glory and thank belongs to the one who created you. If you were in problem, you're in trouble, you had an accident, she gave you to save your life, blood, kidneys, whatever, would you not be grateful to her? You would. It's a natural response. God gave you all of that. God gave you all of this, and yet should we not be grateful to God, thankful to God for what God has given? That is the essence of worship, where you are thankful for all that God has given you, and then you accept why you are here, and you follow the guidance, and you live your life accordingly. If you do that, then in the hereafter awaits for you success, bliss, joy, happiness, paradise, Jannah. If you don't do that, you become a rebel, an arrogant, stubborn individual, and say, I know it's true, but I'm going to reject it. That's what we're talking about, kafir. Yeah? Reject it, then the consequence is not going to be that you will go to heaven and paradise and place of joy and happiness. There's another place God has created for those arrogant, stubborn rejectors. That's the place of torment, place of punishment and suffering, where it will never end, forever and forever. And God reminds us constantly, don't go there. Don't follow the steps which will lead you to that place. Rectify yourself. Remove yourself from wickedness, bad actions, sinful actions. Once you do that, it will be easier for you then to accept the truth. The moment you're engulfed in so much badness or evilness or whatever, it becomes impervious for the good to come to you. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, it's like a place in our body called the heart. If you commit a sin, a black spot forms on it, like there's a black spot on it. If you do another sin, another black spot. Imagine people commit all these bad actions. The more you do, it becomes, all these black actions, eventually it becomes such that it becomes impervious, like there's no way guidance can go to your heart. Guidance wants to come, but because sin has made this heart totally impervious to any guidance. There are people who have made themselves like that. That is why God constantly asks us to reflect and get back in repentance. You know what happens? What happens? Just to finish this point, and we'll return there, God willing. When we realize this, it's when something befalls us, a calamity, a suffering, we wake up. God help us, God save us. You're in a ship, the Titanic, and it's sinking. And you're saying, oh God, I'll be good, please help me, please rescue me, I'll be good. They don't pray to Santa Claus, Tony Blair, Superman, what are all the cartoon characters, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, whatever. None of them will do, because they know this is a fiction of the imagination. None of them can help them. They return to God.
Then when you're about to die,
So God gave us this time period, says, look, before you die, you have to use your mind, your intellect, your reasons to understand His revelation, His guidance, follow it, accept it. That's very good for you. If you don't, at the moment of death, when you say I believe, it will not be accepted over. Pharaoh, you know the story of Pharaoh in the Quran. Pharaoh, he was chasing Prophet Moses, peace be upon Prophet Moses and upon all the prophets. He didn't want to believe. He declared himself to be the God most high on earth. And when Moses parted the Red Sea and crossed with his people on the other side, Pharaoh realized that. He was following it. He said, I'm going to follow it anyway. Supernatural, whatever. And then the water engulfed them and his army. And he's about to drown and about to die, and says, God, I believe. God says, what? Al-an? Now? No. It will not be accepted. Believe at the moment of death, when the reality hits you, is not going to be accepted. So we have to get ready to wake up to this reality before death comes to us. And death can come to us anytime. There is no guarantee that you will live and I will live for another 40, 50 years. People die when they're young. People just suddenly they die without anything. You know, you didn't have any medical condition, you just dropped dead. So it is very important that we constantly think about death. We remind ourselves about death before you go to sleep, for example, and then that will put you back onto the track and say, what am I here then? What's my purpose in life? Then you'll realize that it is important for you to worship God and none else, because that's the only way you can be successful in the hereafter. Okay.
So my question is, so you were saying that sin leads to hell, right?
No, I was saying God does not punish anyone for someone else's sin. You are not guilty of a crime that you did not commit, and you are not punished for the crime that you did not commit.
Okay, so my response then, so the whole point is that sin seems to be a bad thing for God, and that leads to hell. Would you agree with that?
It's not a bad thing for God.
It's
sin, no. What do you mean a bad thing for God?
So sin seems to be something that will lead to hell. Or is it a good thing? Is sin a good
Let
thing?
me understand your point.
Yeah.
We are created for a purpose, and we are given a particular, say, code of life. Do this and don't do this. Let's simplify it. Do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
Okay? If you don't do the things that God says don't do them, so you're following God, do those things that God asks you to do, and you're following God, and you have the correct belief, then you become recipient of God's mercy of going to paradise. If you don't do those things, you rebel against God, then you are transgressing against God's, transgressor. So when you transgress against God, that act is called sin, transgression.
Yeah.
That has a consequence, where your consequence is not going to be paradise, a place of joy. It's going to be a place of torment, which is hell.
So let me, okay. So the whole...
Ask you, give me age of 12 or 13. Give me an age range where the Jewish ladies or young ladies were getting married. What age range were they married in their culture and their tradition? You should know, because you brought this up.
No, I don't know, but my response will be...
Before you give me a response, if you don't know, let me tell you. If you go, if you don't know, then you have to allow me to tell you.
Go on.
Right.
I need to respond.
In the Jewish tradition, they do not let their girls to go beyond a certain age. So as they become in the age of puberty, this is the age of getting ready to marry.
But are Jewish the perfect standard for living?
Oh, please. We are talking about, the age difference between two individuals in their marriage. So I gave an example of Joseph the carpenter, who was 90 years old, and then Mary, the mother of Christ. You would not find any Christian or any Jew who says she was 18. You will not find it anywhere, today or yesterday. Why? Because that wasn't the Jewish tradition. She was married quite old. Let's say she was married 15 or 16. Let's take it to 17, but definitely not 18, because 18 seems to be current standard. 90 and 17, what's the age gap? Do you have a problem with that?
So say again,
90 years old and 17 years old. Do you have a problem with this marriage?
Do I have a problem?
Yes. Do you have a problem?
If she's 17, her partner...
And 90.
Her partner... Let me... I don't think you understand my point. The point I'm trying to say is...
Can you answer my question first, yeah? Do you have a problem with someone who is 90 years old? Do you have a problem? At that time, they didn't have a problem.
No, I don't have a problem with that.
Good,
I'll tell you why.
fine.
I'll tell you why.
That's it, you've answered it.
At the end of the day, a person that's whoever marries someone, I'm not saying that it was never done. In those days, yes, people at older age used to marry a young person. They were nobody's standard, okay? So from the Islamic belief, Muhammad is your perfect example, not for just that time, but for his time today.
And what does he say when you should get married? According to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Very important question.
So he's the perfect example.
No, according to his teaching, you missed the point. According to his teaching, okay, go ahead.
So a 54-year-old marrying a 9-year-old, if you go to Arabic nations today, you see the consequence of that. People are dying. Young girls are dying because they're not mature. Their parts are not mature enough to hold a baby or to
Then that's wrong.
An adult man's penis.
Islamic marriage is okay, finish, I'll tell you. Remind me about this thing about harm.
Perfect example. I'm not saying Jewish didn't do it, but I'm saying no one is saying that the Jewish people are perfect people that we should follow. But
So let me respond to what you just said.
Yeah.
In the Arab world, young people are dying. They absolutely should be accountable in the court of law by committing harm. Because in Islam, marriage is between two individuals where the marriage, what we call the, you have the nikah where marriage needs to happen, right? So you have the engagement and you have the consummation. Consummation, if there is any risk of harm being done, then they cannot consummate the marriage.
A 9-year-old.
Excuse me, if you allow me to respond to you.
Sure.
In the Arab world or in this world or any other world, if there is going to be harm involved in consummation of the marriage, that marriage cannot be consummated. Islamic principle. So you are bringing a point where we agree with. So that is not the example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's not his teaching. In fact, his teaching is, please, the teaching of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam about this, there is no age limit. But there are certain conditions where you have to reach the age of puberty, at least, that becomes you ready to conceive, ready to have this consummation. You have to also, the Quran says, reach the age of rushd, what we say, intellectual maturity. So the Quran does not, if you allow me to, the Quran, you didn't know? How long have you been studying Islam? Okay, don't worry, remind me people, yeah, remind me. We'll come back to this point, remind me. But let me make my point.